continuity, and that maybe is a good discussion within the department and the program.
I would say that the mastery of the structures are essential to understand the content as well. And how much it can destroy the content when it's absolutely written wrong. And it's not because I can guess that I would be happy with the content. Even though I realize the student might be intelligent and have an interest in content, but if the content doesn't go through because of the structures, it's zero for me because the message doesn't go for, except for the teachers because we're used to the mistakes. But so it's very difficult to balance.
Absolutely, and it is that balance. And actually, I wasn't suggesting that we try to pick that balance in one direction or another. It's an individual and programmatic distinction. But if content is our emphasis, then why aren't we focusing more on content in 101, 102? I mean, there is a basic threshold for simple single clause sentences. But once you reach that threshold, why isn't there more of a focus on content in some cases? And indeed, in some of the programs here, there are. But in general, there's more of an, as Denise characterized it, there's more of an emphasis on skills development, uniquely skills development, and focusing on accuracy in the first couple of years, and then largely a dearth of that in the second 2 years of the traditional sort of 4-year program. And so that's what I was doing.
I can only give personal testimony, but it was some of these frustrations that led me to then try to develop this rubric and I use this on all the levels. In the first year, I use it in my head, because that would be a little too confusing for every chapter exam where they write 35 words to hand back, this much feedback. But in my mind, I do the same thing, where half of their, let's say on their grammar tests, they have to write an essay. Half of I put down for content, and half of the 20 points is for content, and half is for then accuracy. So if it's still understandable, even though the grammar's all wrong, then they get that. But otherwise, precisely, but precisely because I see this as all four going together. Sometimes I will say in my comments on the content section, I think that the ideas are good. Unfortunately, they are obscured by this. And so that way, unfortunately, I still take that down because I don't know until they come in for those meetings with me. I'm like, oh, that's what you were trying to say. But then that's where they also recognize that at some point, those relative pronouns are important if all of a sudden you don't know what they're referring to anymore. And I use this at all the levels, but I change the weighting. It's generally 50-50. But if it's the composition class, then I do it exactly 50-50, because it's focusing on how to master different types of writing with the content. And then with the literature, then a little more towards the content, because the form only helps advance or detracts from. And then with the vocabulary, I guess that was that question, is because we're also in a second language, they have to learn the correct language level. They cannot be speaking every day on the street speech, and they do not recognize yet the difference between words. In English, you inherently know you're not going to say certain things in a formal essay.
Yeah, especially if they've been abroad, they like
yeah,
to
exactly.
use their informal language.
Yeah.
Well, let's give a round of applause to our presenters. And hold on your question. We're continuing on the topic with Professor Patrick Vivirito.
Thanks everyone for coming out. My PowerPoint will be less pretty. Probably I don't have any colors or pictures in my PowerPoint.
The
But,
focus is on the content.
so I'll be discussing some of the work we've been doing in Romance languages on assessing not only student writing, but I'll briefly mention some of the other endeavors we've been working with, which is also oral proficiency. Culture is our next topic we're going to address. And I recognize several of the faces from various committees I've been on. So if I'm giving away any secrets, please tell me to be quiet. And if anyone has any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask. So I'll be talking today. I'll be giving just a brief overview of some of the activity we've been working on over the last 4 years, I believe. I will start by talking about the establishment of a peer tutoring program in writing. And I'll also discuss the work that we've been doing in our committee, the Committee for the Study of Romance Languages and Cultures, on assessment, and that's really been the big key word that we've been working on over the past few years, assessing student work and assessing what we do from level to level, assessing the progression of student ability from level to level in the various skills: reading, writing, speaking, cultural awareness, etc. And I'll just talk about some of the particulars about assessment of student writing across the various languages and levels in our department. I teach in Romance languages. We have 4 languages: Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. And 4 years ago, in 2006, we took the first step, which was to establish a writing tutors program in our department. Several people here on the committee, feel free to jump in, and if you have questions anytime, feel free to bring it up. We saw this as the first step to give students a foundation, to give students a practical foundation to go outside of the classroom. Very often, as you know, students are hesitant to come to us during office hours, for example. We decided that a peer tutoring program would be a less stressful way for students to get direction. Someone who's already been through the program once. In the instance of upper level courses, we've recruited native speakers to handle the tutoring. The program was established in 2006, and we ran a pilot program in the fall of 2006, and I think we only started with 3 languages. I don't believe we did Portuguese right off the bat, because we just kind of wanted to get the ball rolling. We started mostly with the lower levels, and that's primarily what I'll be addressing today, since that's primarily what I teach, is the 100, 200 level. Initially, our program was housed in the University Writing Center, and we have since moved it into the CSLC, and it's really taken off. It's become more than just writing. Students can, as most of you probably know, in the various languages, students can now go and get assistance with grammar and just simple oral production as well. So it's a program that was started 4 years ago, and it's really added dimension as the years have gone on. Just brief background on what a session consists of. Students will bring their papers, either corrected or not corrected. This is sort of a point of not contention, but in an effort to maintain teacher autonomy, we made some executive decisions at the beginning that students had to bring a corrected draft to the center. A lot of teachers found it useful to send their students with an uncorrected draft, so that they can actually get feedback before the instructor had a look at the paper. Students typically read their paper in the target language, obviously, to the tutor. And we found, and trying to address this briefly, that from the transition to the lower levels to the upper levels, there's also a transition and emphasis on form and content. It's very often the case that the 100 level, even into the 200 level, students need a lot of direction on primarily form. And by the time they make it to a 400 level course, these sessions typically are done in the native language. Very often at the 100, 200 level, it's a discussion in English to just kind of figure out what's working, what's not working. Very often by the time they make it to the 400 level, they are conversations that are held in the target language, and there's a greater emphasis placed on content. Okay, I'm on the first slide. We had a recruitment phase where we would ask our colleagues to suggest to us some of the more capable students who had already been through their programs to potentially work in the Writing Center as writing tutors. And then we publicize it among our faculty. Initially, there was not a lot of enthusiasm among our colleagues. There are some people some of us have been doing things for so long in such a way that not necessarily the case that we don't want to change what we're doing, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I just wanted to say a word about the numbers. In the fall of 2006, we had 127 students use the service. The last time we collected data and looked at it was the spring of 2009, and we had more than doubled that amount. We had 260 students use the service in the spring of 2009. So there obviously has been a change in the faculty mentality. We have more faculty members who are sending their students to use the service than they did when it was initially created. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions.